Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Our guest today, Mike Abadi. Mike, it's really great to have you on. Appreciate you being here. Let us know, first of all, where you're calling in from and what you do for a living with Sunday Citizen.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. I'm Mike Abadi. I'm co-founder and CEO of Sunday Citizen. We're currently based in Miami, Florida, but in the last 5 years, we've lived in several locations. We were in China for a bit, Costa Rica, and settled here in Miami about 3 years ago. So it's been a couple of places.
Awesome. Yeah. And give us a little bit more about your background. I mean, what got you interested in this space, and what was kind of the problem you noticed out there in the market that you're trying to solve, or what you're trying to do maybe a little bit differently with this brand, Sunday Citizen?
Yeah, sure. So this is an opportunity that we sort of stumbled upon it. It was, even though, Sunday Citizen as a brand started 5 years, in the summer of 2019. So we're about to hit our 5-year anniversary. But the story goes back like 8 years ago when two hotel brothers based here in Miami, they were looking for blankets for their hotels. They run some very high-end boutique hotels, and they were looking for a blanket that had to be extremely soft, cozy, but at the same time being able to withstand the wear and tear of hotel use. And this is a guy who calls himself a fabric-centric guy. He's like super picky when it comes to the softness of everything in his life. His clothing, his jeans, everything has to be very soft. And he was frustrated with the possibility with the blankets for this hotel, because either they were soft but too delicate, or they were being able to withstand wash and use, but not soft enough, right? So
right.
We originally developed a blanket for his hotels, and the blanket was a big success. I'm telling you that the guests loved it. They would ask to buy it where they could buy it when they would check out. So he started selling them in the hotel lobbies. He had like a little gift shop, and they started to do very well there. And we were sort of in this like beta mode for like 3 years. During that time, I was starting another brand called Hive and Colony that does, they still do tailor-made suits. So I was busy with that, but I was doing this sourcing for him as a side thing. In 2018, I exited the Hive and Colony business, and my wife and I were looking for opportunities, and we knew we had a great product with this blanket. We knew it was a great product, and we just needed to take it to market. So we actually ended up partnering with these two brothers, and that's when Sunday Citizen as a brand was born. So we started off only with blankets, selling online through our Shopify store. And at the time, my wife and I and two babies that we had at the time, we actually moved to Shanghai to take care of production. And the reason why we did that is because our product was not a product where we could just go into a factory and say, hey, show us your catalog. We're going to send you some Pantone numbers and take an order. We were really getting involved from the ground up, all the way from the yarn to the fabrics, to the finished product, getting very involved in the production of everything, coming up with some very unique items, and I think that led us to being able to develop very unique product and then very quickly. So this was back in 2018, so it was great because, we launched in 2019, quickly started expanding into other products for the bed. We got into comforters, sheets, pillows, loungewear, bath, and we were able to do it very quickly because we were very involved in the production side. Obviously, the pandemic hits, we were very well positioned with our product, and that's when things started to really skyrocket. And I got lucky because I actually got out of China in January of 2020. This was for vacation. It was Chinese New Year, so I left. We hadn't even heard of COVID at the time, but it was Chinese New Year, so we went on vacation to a wedding in Costa Rica, and we got out of China, and we were not able to go back. We had to send somebody to pick up all our apartment and FedEx it. It was crazy.
Right.
And then we were sort of stuck in Costa Rica for all of 2020.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. No, I appreciate you sharing that story. That's amazing. And yeah, I was going to ask because I see on the website you're doing a bunch of different SKUs now, definitely going beyond the blankets, right? And then I suppose like when you exited your other business and wanted to kind of put 2 feet into this brand, were you kind of looking to do the same type of thing you were doing with the two brothers that own those hotels in Florida and get into the more kind of hotel service and supply that way? Or were you trying to do more like direct to consumer rate at that time?
Yeah, I wanted to get into direct to consumer right
Right.
away. That's where I saw the big opportunity. In my suit business, even though we had brick and mortar retail locations, most of our customer acquisition was being done online through digital marketing, right?
Right.
Google, we were doing a lot of digital marketing, getting the people into making appointments, booking appointments, coming into the store. So I had that experience with digital marketing, and we knew the potential that it had to scale quickly. So, and sort of when COVID hit, we didn't have a choice really. At that point, it
Yeah.
was
Right.
all in on our Shopify store.
For sure, yeah. So, and then I guess since then, have you kind of grown like what kind of channels in the digital marketing side, whether it's paid advertising or socials, or maybe even like different marketplaces, where you kind of seen the most growth, in driving traffic to the website since you started doing D2C in 2020?
Yeah, I think, when we started, we were very, very heavy on Meta, a little too heavy.
Hmm.
And in the last couple of years, we've been forced to diversify away from that. So we've been able to diversify to the point where Meta is now less than 50%. We've been seeing very good results. We've been able to scale Google very well. We've been able to scale not to the point where we would have liked to, but it's becoming an important player, TikTok.
Hmm.
And recently we've started to see good numbers with Pinterest as well. So I
Oh,
think
cool.
we're right now more diversified in our acquisition than we've ever been. We've always, since day one, been very heavy on influencers as a channel as well. And that's something where we've always seen success. And our challenge has been more on how to scale that. And I think that's going to be a big focus for the next few months.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I guess when you think about back in 2020 when you started doing D2C, what was kind of your like in your mind at that time? What was kind of your ideal customer profile looking like then? And has anything kind of surprised you as far as like from what you can tell from the data of people buying since then? Has anything surprised you about any like specific customer profiles or demographics as you look forward here to 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. We started off as a brand that really catered sort of the millennial female audience. And even though it continues to be our biggest audience, the biggest demographic, I've been surprised at how flat the curve has gotten. And I've been also surprised by how much we've gotten into the male demographic. I think at this point we're like north of 30%, maybe 35%, whereas when we started, we were like maybe 10%.
Right.
So I think that for us has been very interesting to see the potential with the male audience.
Yeah, it's interesting. And especially when you consider that, when you look at those statistics, I mean, especially mothers, they're the ones buying it for who the end consumer is, might be a lot of men, but I think the women do a lot of the buying, whether it's and a lot of CPG type of areas, whether it's food and beverage that they're buying online or apparel or even things like this. So that 30% is actually, that's pretty high. That's probably like end consumer at parity, I would say, seemingly looking at those numbers. So that's really
No,
interesting. And
man. Yeah, especially because, myself, even though I might be the one that discovers a new brand, at the end of the day, as a husband, I leave the final decision to my wife. She's the one that
exactly. Yeah.
manages the look and feel of our house.
Yep.
So definitely it's good. And, I think part of the reason why we've seen a big success with the male audience is maybe with the practicality of our products. They're easy care, machine washable. Also, it's especially our comforters. They're a product that doesn't require you to have like a duvet plus a duvet insert plus a flat sheet. It's like an all-in-one product. And I kid you not, like with our comforter, you can make your bed in the morning in less than 10 seconds. It's, lay it flat. You don't need anything. So I think for guys, that's a big selling point.
No, it definitely is. Like, whenever I get to looking at stuff like that with my girlfriend, she's always like, "I love the duvet. I love all this stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, it's great. It's beautiful. Like, feels great." But it's just like, for me, like still living in my own apartment, I'm like, I don't have time to be dealing with all this. Like, I want to throw my stuff in the wash and put it out, have it smell nice, and get into bed. Like, that's all I want, right?
Yeah.
No, it's that's funny. It's so true. I can definitely see that. And I guess one other question I was just saying, just looking at the website, looking at all the SKUs that you have on here, what kind of led you down? I mean, kind of a natural progression, I suppose. But what was your experience like in getting into kind of like the robe, pajamas, and like the kind of apparel side of things, rather than more of the like bedding and decor side?
Look, it was something where we were very data dependent.
Hmm.
So again, going back to I was living in China, I was spending at least 3 days out of the week in the factory floor with the factory. So that allowed me to be able to be very efficient and do very small tests. We were able to do small production batches and test. And to tell you the truth, when we started, we thought that we were going to be going more towards the direction of loungewear and robes and pajamas. We thought that was going to be our biggest growth area. And the data basically took us in the opposite direction. We started to see most of our success coming in from the bedding, and we just reacted to that. We were able to react very quickly and constantly innovate. And that's something that we've been able to continue being able to be very trying new things, testing, and then going from there. So for example, last summer we introduced our cooling comforter, which is like a comforter with like a new technology. It's called PCM technology, phase changing materials that we sort of like embed in our fabric. And again, we were able to test it out, very small numbers. It did extremely well, and we just reacted to that and bake and scaled. So it was very like test and scale. That's how we've grown our product mix.
Yeah, it's good advice, honestly, for anybody listening. I mean, whether you're thinking about your digital marketing, or you're thinking about your R&D or your original product development, I mean, that's really all you can do. I mean, sometimes it's just like a keep it simple, stupid kind of moment, right? Like you need to do the testing, you need to get that data in order to move forward. You don't want to be just like doing the guesswork and thinking you have the best thing but making a ton of units, and then it ends up getting bad reviews, or people just really aren't resonating with it, right? So I think that's good advice. It's a great perspective on that, and especially with your like kind of unique process of being so involved in the manufacturing process with your manufacturers there. And to that point, I wanted to ask, have you been approached for any type of like, private labeling opportunities, or is that something that you're, willing to entertain if the right partner comes along to do anything like that?
Yes, we have,
Mm-hmm.
especially on the wholesale side of business. We've done a lot of branded product for big brands, like for example, last Christmas we did like a nice production run for New Skin, the skincare brand. We've done special productions for hotels, so for like hotels, we can do like, they can say, for example, oh, I like your Casablanca throw, but we want the color to match the Pantone in our walls, so they'll give us the Pantone and we can do a custom made blanket for them. And, so we do a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so I guess when it comes to the hotels, obviously, they want it branded and things, but it's still kind of essentially it's like kind of like a wholesale deal for them, right? Do you think about like and when you do things for maybe like another company that wants to do it, will you do it like your brand X their brand, like almost like a collab, or have you done any like real like truly like blank white labeling that people are kind of branding themselves?
Look, at this point, most of our wholesale, in the last 2 years, the part of the business that has grown the most for us has been wholesale. It's still under 20% of the total, so we're still mainly a D2C business, but wholesale has been growing a lot faster than the D2C side.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we've had great partnerships with Nordstrom, with Bloomingdale's, with Macy's, with Dormify, and in a lot of these cases, they're coming not so much for the product, they're coming for the brand, right?
Right.
And coming just because of the strength of the brand. In other cases, like the ones you mentioned, like we do collaborations where we'll do like a custom-made color or custom-made design. But in those cases, we try to do it as a X and Sunday citizen because we want to, and nowadays we feel that a lot of those cases, they want the brand to be there as well.
Right.
In the very early days of the company, we did do a few private label production runs, but I don't think anybody has asked for it in the last 3 years, because at the end of the day, most people are coming for us, not just the product, but the brand as well.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And yeah, as I mentioned out there, Mike, one question I always love to ask everybody that comes on the podcast, which is basically, think about your inception in, 2018, 2019. You go back to that time and give yourself any one piece of advice if you were to start this business again. I guess barring like, I could see COVID coming, which actually ended up helping you. So maybe that wouldn't even be a piece of advice. But yeah, what do you think that piece of advice would be if you can go back and give yourself anything, if you were to start this brand again?
Yeah, look, I think part of our issue was that we've been in business 5 years, and it's been 5 years where every year has been very different. So I think that during the high growth years, COVID, 2020, 2021, I would have been a little bit more conservative on how we grow. not necessarily the rate of growth, but on how we grow. Also, I think in a way we were a little bit too slow to hire at the very beginning. I think we got to the point where we were like doing $5-6 million, and it was still just a 3-person team, me, my wife, and like one customer service person. So I think I would have liked to be a little earlier on the hiring in that regard, because it would have allowed us to grow in a more structured way. And then I do think, we were able to react to it relatively quickly, but I do think there's a lot of value in having started with D2C as the main channel of growth, but always looking into wholesale as a way to complement it. I think the pure D2C or the pure wholesale strategy, neither of them is good. I think like an omni-channel strategy from day one would have been better.
Yeah, I can see that. And what I find actually is, and tell me if I'm right in this, is as you approach these like kind of wholesale and retail opportunities now, does it kind of help to have a real like proof of concept doing the D2C business so successfully, and having those conversations? Because I find it's hard to start both together. I feel like whether you start in retail or whether you start doing direct to consumer, either one of those could be a really great, proof of concept, whether you're trying to get, investor funding to launch on the D2C side, or whether you're looking to get into retail for the first time. I think having kind of I think it could just give you a lot of leverage to approach those conversations. Did you kind of find that with having the success early on in D2C as you approach these retail conversations now?
Yeah, look, absolutely. And like I said, for example, with a Nordstrom, a Bloomingdale's, they came to us because of the established brand that we had already created, right? I think we would have gone to a Bloomingdale's on day one. They wouldn't have even responded to our emails, right?
Right.
A dead end. But I do think that from day one, you can start exploring opportunities with, smaller mom and pops, like going after the hotel opportunities, so I think it depends, but definitely I completely agree that the strength of the D2C opens up a lot of opportunities on the wholesale side.
Yeah, for sure. And your first kind of part of that answer to that question is actually a very common one, which is a good thing, because I think it turns it from like, an anecdotal experience for a lot of people into like, no, this is like really the reality of starting a brand, which is basically, the rate and the way you're growing is as important, or the way that you're growing is as important as the rate of your growth as well. That's one thing I get as an answer to that question so often across industries, which is just basically that, I wish I didn't just want to have growth at all costs early on. I wish I grew a little bit more organically or through like the channels I really wanted, or maybe didn't jump into these relationships so early on. It's a very common answer, but it's a great perspective, honestly, for anybody listening. And again, I think the more and more I hear that, I'm like, definitely listen to this. Like when 50 entrepreneurs tell you like this is something they wish they did differently, maybe you should start listening. So no, I really appreciate your insight there. Yeah.
And also having been earlier, having retention as a focus earlier on, because what happened is that during the years where acquisition was so easy, was so cheap, you were able to sort of ignore the retention side. It would happen organically, but I think if it would definitely help to start prioritizing retention from the very beginning, and I think that's something that would have definitely given a lot of fruits later on.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And that's a great piece of advice as well. And Mike, I just want to give you a quick opportunity as well, just to shout out your website, your social medias, any way, anybody might be interested in getting in touch with you for a potential business partnership, or just want to try out the product. Let everybody know how to stay in touch with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is sundaycitizen.co. You can email me at mike@sundaycitizen.co, and I'm very active on X, so my handle there is @Mike Abadi. So, happy to connect.
Awesome. Well, Mike, I just want to say thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate your insights and chatting with you. So just want to wish you the best of luck and continued success in everything you're doing, man. And yeah, look forward to staying in touch for sure.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everybody.